Hi, I'm Gia, and Mr. Roser asked me to go ahead and read my short story out loud for you guys. That way I can share it, and I'm really excited to do that. So the title of my short story is The Next Heir. Liz and her mother walked up to a luxurious castle. She looked up and noticed all the intricate details that went into building it. "Are you guys here for the contest?" a guard called out from the entrance. Liz nodded. "I am." She walked up to the guard and gave her name, age, and hometown. She followed other kids her age through a hallway, made a turn or two, and entered into the ballroom. When she entered, she gasped. It was huge. At least 100 kids stood in rows, each holding various pots and plants. Liz walked in with her non-existent plant. Kids and parents alike looked her way and smirked, and some even laughed at her. She noticed her neighbor Cole. He had the biggest plant of everyone there. He stood at the front of the line, and he barely kept from laughing when he saw her. When she got in line, Justinian, the king's advisor, clapped to get everyone's attention and announced he would be filling in for the king. He reviewed the rules and promised to do his best. The king had put out a decree that stated whoever had the best plant with the provided seeds he sent out to each village would win. However, Liz had nothing. All Cole had done the last 6 months was rub his success in her face. Because she had so much trouble growing anything, Liz had to believe he cheated. Or maybe his parents had cheated for him, so he wouldn't throw one of his tantrums. Maybe she should have cheated too. But no, she couldn't. What kind of ruler would she be if she had lied her way to the throne? Justinian did as the king had wished. He looked at every submission, making his way down the rows of people. He sped through most of it. The king had always reprimanded his hastiness, but he needed to get through the submissions quickly. He asked each child about what they did to make their plants grow. He was most obviously impressed by Cole's plant. Eventually, Justinian reached Liz and walked up to her. Confused, he asked, "Where's your plant?" "I tried. I did everything I could, but nothing would make it grow." "I'm sorry," Liz said as she looked down in embarrassment. "What's that?" asked Justinian, pointing to a thick notebook she held. "It's a record book. I kept track of everything I did. Watering, fertilizing, how much sun they got, everything." Justinian took the book, casually flipped through it, and gave it back. Liz was last in line, so he walked into another room with Frederick, the king's secondary advisor. The people in the room muttered among themselves. Logically, everyone knew who the winner was, but deep in Liz's heart, there was still a pang of hope that maybe Justinian saw something in her. After a while, they came back with a final announcement. Cole had won and would be king. Liz's heart sank, but there was nothing more she could do. Justinian sat down in his chair, leaned back, and put his hands behind his head. It had been a stressful week. It hadn't been announced, but 3 days ago the king had passed away. However, the king was prepared, and he had written out a special letter to Justinian to make sure he knew what to do when he passed. It specified everything the king thought a ruler should be. They were to be honest, loyal, and diligent. Justinian closed his eyes, shook the king out of his head, and imagined Cole's crowning. The crowds, clapping, cheering, everyone congratulating him for finding the perfect heir to the throne. He was a hero. He stepped up to the role when no one else could. Everyone relied on him, and he had made it happen. Justinian opened his eyes with a smile on his face, then looked back at his messy desk. The night before, he had ransacked his office to find the king's last will and testament. He started to make a pile of all the papers sitting on his desk, while skimming their contents to see what they were. When he came across the king's letter for him, he reread it. As he got to the end of the letter, he started to read the king's provisions for the contest. His eyes glazed over as he was reading. The king wouldn't stop going on about how a virtuous ruler needed to be. Yes, he knew he had to make sure of everyone's age, that the winner hadn't cheated, and that they were the right person for the job. He rolled his eyes as he continued. "Now, Justinian, I know your hastiness and pride, and I'm aware you know the rules for the competition, but there is one more thing you need to make sure of. I trust that at least one of my young subjects is honest and is willing to stand up for the truth. When you see someone that has no plant, make sure that they are chosen, because all of the seeds were sterile." Justinian's heart stopped. He reread it, then reread it again. All of the seeds were sterile. He glanced over to the papers he had just signed declaring Cole was king. They were sealed. fully sealed, unchangeably sealed. His mouth went dry and his face drained of color. That phrase kept spinning around in his head. Everyone had counted on him. The king, the kingdom, and Liz. He remembered Liz. Guilt washed over him. He remembered the empty pot she held. She was the one. She wouldn't have been so proud. She would have done the right thing. The king warned him about this, and yet he still didn't listen. He had been too proud, looking only on the outward appearance. He remembered how honest, how good she was, but it was too late now. Cole was sealed to be king. What was he going to do? Thank you.